We are joined now by our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, thanks again for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Duke. Great to be with you.
Well, this is a report based on a story we actually covered a couple days ago, but I think it's important enough that we really should talk more about it. We have San Diego, which used to be known as the sane area of California before California went completely blue. San Diego School District is now going to change the way they grade children in their public schools to factor in anti-racism. Seriously.
It's incredible, Duke. It is absolutely, I mean, you think you're living in a science fiction movie, except it's real. I looked at the report they used to persuade the members of the San Diego Unified School District that they needed to abolish their racist grading system. Right there on the front is a big, giant quote from Angela Davis, the former leader of the Communist Party USA. You'd think that would have been a big red flag, no pun intended, but no. And so when you look at the policy they passed, you're not allowed to take students' knowledge into account. You're not allowed to take their skills into account. You're not allowed to take their attendance into account. You're not allowed to take whether they handed in their assignments into account. It's just a subjective, nebulous notion of if a teacher feels they've made progress on mastering the skills. That is not education. That is absurd. And so basically, they've really abolished grades for all intents and purposes and replaced it with the teacher is supposed to give a subjective assessment of what color the student is combined with did they learn anything this year. So
well, it's not just that. If they carry that just one little half step forward, you're going to have to give good grades, better grades, to the kids who suffer those problems. If they're not coming to class, well, that's racism. If they're not turning in their homework, well, that's because they're bullied by peers at home for being different races. If they don't know what other kids know, or they can't pass it. One of my favorite was testing, right? The idea that we can't hold kids responsible for the content of tests. So in other words, you could spend a whole month studying for an exam, teaching to an exam, getting kids ready to take an exam in math. But then to hold those kids, if they're minority kids, to hold those kids responsible for the content of the test is now also racist.
Yeah, and Duke, the incredibly ironic thing, and this just keeps coming up again, this is so racist. These racists are coming up with the presupposition that unless we abolish an objective system of measuring student performance, then we're going to end up with biased grades and they're going to be racist grades. That is in and of itself racist. What they're saying, without actually coming out and saying it, is that they don't think black people can perform at the same level as Joe Biden put it. Poor kids and so on, they're just as smart as white kids, right? I mean, this is an inherently racist argument that they're making. It's being promoted by communists, and it's being accepted by people who apparently are incapable of using logic or reason or even looking at evidence. It's very, very dangerous, and it goes along with math is racist, objectivity is racist. This is a recipe for civilizational suicide, Duke.
You and I really spent a lot of time over the last decade trying to call this out to parents. But what shocks me is how in a short order, the last step was taken. So for a long time, we failed to educate the poorest and the inner city kids. No matter how much money we threw at that, we were unable to do it. It wasn't about racism. It was about family breakdown. It was about a whole bunch of things. Nevertheless, in recent circumstances, we went from a situation where we gave up trying to help the low performers by inculcating things like Common Core, right? We're going to lower the standards for it. We can't raise the lowest performing kids, so let's hold down the high performing kids. That's where the Common Core era took us. And in the space of about 2 years now, a year and a half, we've taken that next step, which says that lack of performance, unwillingness to perform, unwillingness to participate in education now requires that we pass those kids, right? In the name of racial equity now, we have to actually reward those kids for not doing things, because that's seen as anti-racist pedagogy, right? That you can't get rid of we've already conceded that the American system of everything is nothing but racism going back 250 years. So therefore, let's not even try to pretend that the public schools can do anything like a fair job. Let's just drop grading. Let's assess kids simply on their skin color about whether we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt or not.
Yeah, and again, this is so racist, Duke. It's so racist. It starts with the racist assumption that other races can't keep up, and it's a lie. Go back and look at what Marva Collins did in Chicago with inner city minority youth. She turned them into absolute geniuses, highly literate lawyers and doctors and the elite of society, and she did it just by giving them a good education. What they need is not coddling. What they need is not perpetual victimhood. Oh, the man is keeping you down. White people are keeping you down. That is Marxist idiocy. It's ridiculous. It is not conducive to performance. It's not even conducive to having a civilization. It will destroy our society if we don't nip this in the bud. Unfortunately, it's gotten way out of control, and the consequences are just going to be absolutely disastrous, Duke. And you mentioned Common Core. One of the guys who helped write Common Core, I quoted him in my article. He said his whole deal was to eliminate what he called white privilege, which is as fraudulent as a $3 bill. And yet this is the ideology that motivates a lot of these wackos.
Well, it is really doubly ironic when you think about it that they point to a system that has managed to educate kids at a relatively high level. They call it systemic racism. And what is their response to fighting systemic racism? To create an actually systemic system that requires racism in order to justify all of these racial profiles. Hey guys, most of you know that our little Dr. Duke show is being hidden and demonetized by the creepy crawlers at YouTube and Facebook. Sadly, this impacts our long-term ability to produce the kind of quality show that you've gotten used to. So we've decided to tackle the problem by launching our own new Patriot Club. Yes, for 99 tax-deductible dollars once a year, 99, you will not only keep our show going, but we'll ship you this fabulous stainless steel tumbler, etched with the American flag and the words, "Freedom never tasted so good." Visit patriotclub.us and become a Patriot member today. That's patriotclub.us to support our show and to drink from the font of freedom.